Hello and welcome to the Marketing Practice Podcast 10 Year Out Alumni Series.
Tune in over the next 3 weeks as we bring you interviews from the alumni of 2011.
Find out where they are today, how the MDP has helped them in their career to date, and some of their fondest memories from their time on the MDP.
If you're interested in finding out more about the MDP, check us out on social media.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you shared this with your friends who might be interested in finding out about life on the MDP.
Today's guest is former MDP Jennifer Griffin. Jennifer graduated from the MDP in 2011 and is currently working as a global trade marketing specialist at Citi, an American multinational bank and financial service. So welcome to today's podcast, Jennifer, and thanks so much for coming on. So we're really excited to have you. We might just jump right in. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what your current role in Citi involves?
Good morning, Amelia and Jenny. Lovely to be with you today. A bit about me. So I am approaching my 10 years out of the MDP, which is funny to say that I graduated in 2011 and I've been with Citi ever since, really. So I left the MDP, went into Citi on an internship program, was hoping to stay there for 3 months, and 10 years later, I'm still in Citi. My career with Citi has been quite diverse. So started in the internship program in public affairs. Then I ended up getting involved in Citi's resource and location strategy and helping them with their operation centers globally, a network of 35 sites that we call Citi Solution Centers. And that role brought me to Tampa, Florida, where we started the biggest growth of one of our US sites. And during my tenure there, we went from 3,000 staff to 7,500 staff. And I became the public affairs officer for that location. Very exciting time in my career. And due to family reasons, then we decided to come back to the Emerald Isle after about 3.5 years. And we came back. I took on a global governance role for the CSC network for Citi, overseeing all those sites, and got more involved in the regulatory side of things, how we operate, what our people strategy is. And just last year, a role came up within the trade business, which is part of the Treasury and Trade Solutions side of Citi. So it's part of our institutional bank. And I was fortunate enough to get that role in January, and I've been supporting trade marketing since. And what I do in that role is supporting how we communicate with our clients, how we work with our publication partners, and how we position trade amongst our competitors and within industry.
So you originally said that you only thought that you're going to be going into Citi for 3 months. But was the, I suppose, industry, so that it's a bank and financial services, was this always an industry that you were interested in upon leaving the MDP?
Oh my God. When I think about my time going into the MDP, I suppose I should backtrack a bit. I was in real estate in LIT, so Limerick Institute of Technology, before I went into Smurfit. And how I ended up there was a bit of a a gamble, if you will. I did a placement when I was in LIT, working with serviced offices and virtual offices, setting up a virtual office centre. It was called Office Ireland. It's since been bought over by Regis in Limerick. But I was involved in the original startup and setup and business development for that. And through that role, I ended up doing a lot of marketing. And I really thought, oh, this is something I'm interested in. And I started Googling masters. And if you go back to the time, 2008, 2009, when I was on that placement, we were entering a massive recession in Ireland, and property was not necessarily something you wanted to be in. And I was trying to think, what could I do next? Where was to go? And I didn't really want to start emigrating. And a lot of my colleagues that I was with at the time in LIT, that's the path that they did choose. And I saw this marketing master's in Smurfit, and I saw that there was a practical element to it. So I applied for it, not thinking I would get it at all, and was fortunate enough to get it, and fortunate enough to get the Aspire scholarship, which allowed me to go to Smurfit, which is fantastic. But I think I just kept pinching myself and going, oh my God, I'm actually in marketing. I was meant to be doing a property career. What am I doing here? So the whole way through the master's, we got different projects that we got to do. And like one was with a hair company and one was with a brick company. and one was with an ice cream company. So I was getting to put my hands in a lot of different pots, and I enjoyed every project. So if you said to me, what industry do you want to go into at that time, I didn't care as long as it was something to do with communications, marketing, telling
Yeah.
the story, getting across some value proposition of a product. I was just enjoying it so much. And
Mm.
how it happened with Citi was just so funny. Someone contacted me, told me that they were looking for a public affairs analyst. Um, I went for an interview, and at the time, I was interviewing for lots of other things, similar to when I was back in my student position in LIT, thinking, what will I do next? I just wanted a job. And
Mm.
I was looking around, applying for everything. And I was fortunate to get a few offers. And I kind of narrowed it down on the brand of Citi, and seeing how global Citi was made me take that internship program at Citi. And here we are 10 years later.
Wow.
So funny how things happen. So Jennifer, what advice would you give to somebody wanting to pursue a career similar to yours in Citi? Some top skills you'd recommend?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, not to be short-sighted, and always have your eye on what true core values do you want in your life. So whether that is family, your work-life balance, maybe that is something to do with your own career development. There's a specific area that you want. If you're creative, what are the key things and the values that are core to you as an individual, and then how can you find a job where you can have that outlet too. I think from a skill perspective, working in a place like Citi, it is so big. We're a global company, 250,000 employees globally. So you have to be able to work across several geographies, work across several projects. But you can get tunnel visioned on a certain project, or you can get stuck on something and you forget what the big picture is. And I think you always have to remain like, what is the end goal? What is the top priority? What do I need to do today? Because you will never finish a day and have everything done. So you need to make sure that you are satisfying your stakeholders, you're communicating with all of your stakeholders, and that you've got your eye on the prize, and making sure that whatever career you pick is aligned to your values.
Fab. And obviously, being in the MDP is such a massive learning curve in just every way. But what would you say, if you can think, how has the MDP kind of contributed to your overall professional career to date?
It gave me huge confidence, I would say. Um, for me, getting the scholarship to go to Smurfit and be part of the MDP, like, I was just a girl from Limerick who did a property management degree in LIT, and all of a sudden I was a student in Smurfit, studying marketing. And I was fortunate to get the Aspire scholarship. And when I got that, I thought, like, people had told me, oh, you're good at this, when I was in my placement, you're really good at people, you're good at managing projects, but you don't really believe it.
Yeah.
And in Smurfit and in the marketing practice master, to be thrown into so many projects and to be thrown into a learning set and to be told to do a journal on your development, it made me stop, it made me pause, it made me think, wow, I'm actually able to manage people, manage difficult situations. I think I was tested. I would definitely say tested, but it came back to that personal development, and it gave me a massive confidence boost. So it didn't matter if I was on ice cream, a hair project, or a brick project, I figured it out. And
Yeah.
going through such a tough course like that just gave me a massive confidence boost, and I really felt like I could do anything afterwards.
Mm.
Fab. I know you probably have a lot of them, but can you say one of your favorite memories about the MGP and your time at Smurfit?
So I'll talk about that ice cream project. Um, it was lashing rain. We had to do all of our surveys in winter, and we were proposing the campaign to the client to roll out in spring, summer, but we had to do our analysis in winter. And I remember standing in Grafton Street and having to ask people about their favorite types of ice cream, what ice cream they liked. And Irish weather at the best of times. Well, this is the worst of times. And
Oh my gosh.
it was such a difficult ordeal. But me and a colleague that were on that project, we just got huge cravings for ice cream, and we just kept eating ice cream and doing our own kind of market research. And it just makes me laugh when I think about having to stop people and ask them about ice cream in a rainy Grafton Street, and the last thing they wanted
Yeah.
to do was talk to us. But we pressured on, and we actually got really good results, and the campaign was successful, and made it across lots of different media channels. So I was very proud of that.
Good. Yeah, I can imagine they literally just wanted to run into the shop and get out of the rain. We've been doing everything on Zoom, so we haven't had to stop people on the streets yet. But obviously the course, when you're in the course, you become so close with all the people and everything. Like, have you stayed in contact with the people from the MDP from 10 years out from the series?
I actually have, and it's funny, you create your own little cliques when you're away from home. One girl in particular, both of us were from the country, if you will, and we were both going from Munster up to Dublin, our first time living in Dublin, and that was a big shock in itself. And
Yeah.
we just kind of bonded, and yeah, she's a very important person in my life and someone I talk to all the time. And I always bounce ideas off my MDP classmates, and I like to see what they're doing. Social media is fantastic for that, keeping up to date with people. It's really interesting to see the career paths that they've been on, and I've got to meet some of my friends from the MDP in New York, back in Dublin,
Yeah.
and you just see how far traveled they are. And I always loved when I was in Tampa coming back to Dublin. I would do like a speed dating MDP tour to try catch all my friends, and I'm really proud. Again, it goes back to that confidence thing. When I see how well my classmates have done, it makes me even more proud to say that I was part of the MDP program.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a lovely feeling. So Jennifer, you had mentioned you were a public affairs officer for Citi in Tampa, Florida. Many MPs this year have ambitions to travel when they finish in July. What would be your best advice to those wishing to travel? I know with COVID and everything, it's quite difficult, but in a general perspective, traveling after the MDP, do you have any advice?
I would just say go for it. It's very daunting. Well, actually, I probably learned from my move from Limerick to Dublin, which sounds crazy when you're comparing that to Ireland to Florida, but that was just as scary. You had to
Yeah.
make new friends. You were in a new place, and I'm very thankful all the moves that I've made have really paid off. And y- you know there's legal stuff, like you have to get your visa in place. You got to make sure that you've got sponsorship, but not to be afraid to back yourself, I suppose. Again, how my opportunity with Citi came up to go to Tampa. I was on that project as part of the resource and location strategy, and was starting to prove myself, and the opportunity came up in Tampa. But I would say to somebody, don't necessarily wait for that, and have the backing in yourself. I think I almost waited for others to say, "Look, you can do this. Do you want to do this?" And it's only now, 10 years on in my career, I start to say, "Look, I can actually do that. That I'm good at this side of things." And it can be quite difficult to see what you're good at. I think we're, especially Irish, we're our own worst critics. So don't be afraid to back yourself. Just go for it. And if you do find yourself moving to another country, embrace every experience. I'll tell you a funny story. When we moved there, my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, he moved with me, which helps.
That's nice.
So we moved country, and we needed to get mobile phones, and we went into AT&T in Tampa, and we met this guy from Miami. He just moved up to Tampa, and he was being real friendly with us. "Oh, you're Irish, you're new here." He thought our story was fascinating, that we had moved, and he said, "Do you want to come to a party at my house next week?" And we just said yes. And then it was only afterwards, and I was talking to home, and I was like, "Oh, we met this guy in a phone shop, and he's invited us to a party." And my mother was like, "What are you doing? Going to a party with some guy from Miami? You don't know what he'll be into," and la la la, the typical Irish mammy rant I got. And we went to that house party, And not only has he become one of our best friends, everybody that was at that house party, particularly his cousin Nalini, has become one of my best friends. And at our
That's
wedding,
mad.
she gave a beautiful poem at our wedding, and
Oh,
is someone that is very dear to me in my life. But again, just taking the chance, saying yes to things, and you find
yeah.
your own network no matter where you go.
Yeah, oh, that's actually a nice story as well to have. And just I know you mentioned before that you had like you were applying to a lot of jobs, obviously when you were finishing up in the MDP. So that's kind of like where we're all at the moment. Like everyone's just kind of trying to fix their CV, like trying to just apply to as many interviews as possible. So I was just wondering if you'd have any advice, I suppose, for the MDP students, as they're kind of on this job hunt at the moment.
I would just go back to that confidence. Don't be afraid to back yourself and have the belief. We were very fortunate in the MDP the year we did it. We had a career coach come in and gave us some tips and presentation styles. And she said, I'll never forget what she said. She's like, people don't care what you have to say, they'll only remember three things. So make sure you keep reinforcing the three things and try not to go off on a tangent, which I've probably done in several of the answers that I've given you. But
Not at
she
all.
was very direct in her coaching. Make sure that you are getting your points across, answer the question that you're asked, and have confidence. And I think, again, just being in that mix with everybody else, seeing what everyone else was applying to, talking to your colleagues, finding out about the interviews. There's one notorious analyst program that a lot of us interviewed for, and some of the questions were
Right.
very unique, I would say. So to be able to share those types of questions and experiences with your classmates was good. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
we were all in it together. And when one person got a job, we were all high-fiving one another. And
Yeah.
when it came to the choice, you had a really good forum to like bounce ideas off. What should I do? Where do you think I should go? And what I would say is, so many of us that were in the MDP, we didn't necessarily go into the traditional marketing roles, and it has worked out well. So,
Yeah,
even
it's
like
interesting.
for me going to Citi in public affairs, um, and then ended up in your resource and location strategy. And now, 10 years on, I'm in a marketing role supporting the business in a true marketing sense. But don't be afraid to go a non-traditional avenue either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, we're really
exactly.
lucky in the MGP that we get access to these amazing resources like careers guidance and help. It's so helpful.
Yeah.
So now just wrapping up with the last question for the podcast. What is your biggest highlight in your career from the past 10 years? I'm sure there's many, but if you could just pick us one.
Put you on the spot now.
For me, the biggest highlight would have to be in Tampa. The site had gone through lots of changes in the last few years before I joined, and we were taking it on a trajectory, as I mentioned, moving a lot of roles and growing out the site. But it was establishing a relationship with the University of Florida, making sure that we had regular um, graduates coming into Tampa. We also set up a partnership with the University of South Florida, which is fantastic.
Mm.
But through my role there, I got to meet different people in the community. And this is a funny one to say it's a career highlight, but again, it's coincidence and it's being in the right place at the right time. So we were bringing our CEO from Citi, who was Mike Corbett at the time, down to Tampa to do a town hall with all the employees. We decided to do a big outdoor town hall. The weather's fabulous. So what other site in the world could you have a outside town hall at 365 days a year?
Mm.
So we put on this big, massive town hall. Me and my team organized the whole thing from start to finish. And we started to get some of our external partners to come in and meet with our CEO. So we had our university's partners come in, and it was great to be able to tell him that story and show what we had built in Tampa and establishing a campus as a source strategy. And you're working with those universities locally to start a pipeline into the Tampa site. But my proudest moment and biggest highlight has to be when the mayor Mayor Bob Buckhorn at the time came to the Tampa site. So first of all, to get the mayor to come to the site was a big deal. And I managed to get him to come to the site. And we had the head of our operations and technology from Citi also come to the site. And I greeted them both. It was the first time meeting them. And straight away they picked up my Irish accent and said, "Where are you from?" "Oh my God, I'm Irish." You know how it is.
Yeah,
I'm Irish. No, I'm
Americans and the
Irish.
Irish.
My granddad's Irish. My great granddad's Irish. So they started saying how Irish they were. And I said, "Well, look, I'm actually from Ireland. I just moved here a few months ago." And I ended up getting on great with them. And afterwards, all of those senior figures contacted me, reached out, thanking me for such a great event. But the mayor reached out and said he was looking at doing a sister city partnership with Dublin, and would I help? So I was delighted to get involved in that, connecting with the Dublin Chamber of Commerce and establish Tampa and Dublin as two sister cities. So we got to host the Dublin contingent. And then when the Tampa contingent went over to Dublin, I made sure Citi were involved in that. And just to see the two cities that I had worked in come together and to be so involved with the mayor. And then when I left Tampa, I got a personal phone call from the mayor on my way to the airport, and he said, "The city of Tampa will miss you." So I think
That's such an
for me
achievement.
that was a big highlight.
Yeah, of course.
That's a great highlight.
That's a nice ending note as well now to the podcast. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. So it's been so interesting talking to your class and 10 years out. Obviously, we're doing it now. So looking back and kind of seeing your career progression to this point. So we really appreciate your time and coming on with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny and Amelia. Lovely speaking to you, and good luck. Good luck to you in your careers and your future.
Thank you.